Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07. It's O'Connor and Company this day after Inauguration Day, as we're about to complete the first 24 hours of the second season of the Trump presidency. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Both of us, by the way, if necessary, if pressed, if we had to, could sing America the Beautiful a cappella. Right? Don't you agree? No, we could. I think we've got it. Coming up at 6:35, former Capitol Police Chief Steve Sund is going to join us to talk about the pardons that Joe Biden put there, including the man who killed Ashley Babbitt, got a pardon yesterday, including everyone who testified before the January 6th.
Gross.
Everyone who testified before the January 6th committee got a pardon. We'll talk to Chief Sund about that. We'll talk to Hans von Spakovsky at 7:05 about that and some other pardons, including the entire Biden family, who we all saw it coming. 7:35, Mark Morano, Climate Depot, because America Energy is back. And at 8:35, we'll wrap things up with Julie Kelly, really a hero covering the January 6th investigations and persecutions. That's all coming up. But now we've got Sean Kennedy, and like most of our guests are talking about the new administration, looking backwards, looking forward. But Sean Kennedy with Virginians for Safe Communities. First of all, I do want to commend you. We want to talk about this latest crime issue that happened here in our backyard. But, I was going back and doing a lot of research over the last couple of months about the Biden presidency. And, Sean, I'm sorry for throwing this at you, but you did a hell of a job pointing out the reality of crime statistics. Every time the FBI and the administration would say, oh, no, crime is down. And you actually pointed out through your organizations that was a fraud and that the crime was up, but they weren't getting reported and the FBI was estimating, and it was all. Thank you very much for focusing on such an important issue that really was a major driving factor in this election.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, I know that safety matters, and it's at the end of the day, it's a prerequisite for everything else we want. We want prosperous, successful, happy lives. If you feel insecure in your community, at your school, at work, you can't function. And so many people in this country, too many people in this country, are touched by violence, or touched by theft, or touched by insecurity. I mean, one of the things that Trump did yesterday was to compel federal workers back to work. But there's a lot of other people in the economy who work in the city or who drive into the city who have been hesitant and will remain hesitant until we feel safe again. And so, that's great. And I commend the Trump administration for doing that. But that doesn't mean the city is raring to go and be back where it was 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just kind of hard to imagine that in the early 2010s that the homicide number in D.C. was 77. And then in 2023, it was 270. It was more than Baltimore. So, I mean, being safe matters, and I'm glad that I could be a small part of that.
Well, and that brings us to this latest story, this outrage out of the Arlington public school system. Being safe matters certainly when you're an adult and you have to go work downtown. But what about our poor children who go to a public school, and in this case specifically the Washington Liberty High School? Tell me about this arrest that has been made of a child sex offender for exposing himself or herself or their self. Give us all the details.
Well, Zinzer was convicted first. We've later found out that since 1989, he has been engaged in child sex offenses. His original charges back in 1989 were related to breaking and entering, and that could have been a real ugly thing, but it sounds like that event was prevented, but his intent there was kidnapping or something horrible against a child. Then he was convicted of what has been deemed a violent sex offense in 1992, and therefore had to register as a violent sex offender, which is tier 3, the worst type. But he was convicted of indecent exposure, so the same crime he's being charged with now. Then he got out and in 2001 violated his parole and probation. And why that matters, that a lot of people don't understand about the criminal justice system, is that you can commit a new crime and they don't have to truly adjudicate you if you're on parole or probation. They could just send you back. So it doesn't mean he didn't commit another crime. He likely did. He didn't just fail a drug test or something, what they call technical violation. He likely did something horrible because he was again released in 2004 and in 2007 convicted of multi offenses of possession and distribution of child pornography. Then In the 2012, caught again for violation of parole and probation and non-registry on the sex offender list. And at some point, it's unclear, but he appears on the sex offender list in North Carolina, which makes me think he spent some time there. We don't know what occurred down there, but he sort of falls off the radar until 2021. And in 2021 is caught again and charged with violation of the sex offender registry list.
Hold on. So I mean, this is incredibly compelling, Sean. But let's cut to the chase. How did this guy end up in a little girl's locker room?
I know exactly how this happened because, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, in
Sean.
2021 he was convicted and identified as a male, and then in 2024 he was caught at the Planet Fitness.
That's right.
In Fairfax. Here.
That guy.
This is Lindsay Fifield who has reported on this on Twitter.
Our friend
that was
Lindsay
her.
Fifield.
She left that. And okay, so sorry, go on.
So anyway, he was convicted. The charges were dropped because he asserted he was a woman, therefore had a right to be in there.
Steve Descano.
Steve Descano. Well, it was technically dismissed by the judge, but Descano had the right to bring it back, and he did not.
Right.
And he allowed this to go on. And then this fall, from September to December, mid-December, he committed, at least he's been charged with 6 different times of exposing himself at 4 or 5 different locations, by the way, across Arlington, including Washington Liberty School, Barcroft Gym, and other public pools and things. He goes claims to be a woman, claims to have a driver's license that identifies him as a woman. But then here's the crazy thing. They're using the driver's license that he claims he has that says he's a woman, that he's self-identified, and that Virginia DMV handed him this license. Except for every time he gets arrested, and this is what the charge he's up on today in Arlington, is false identification to police. So it's unclear if he's even registered as a woman, but he just asserts this to the pool managers. And by the way, he looks, if you haven't seen a photo of him, he looks like what you would sketch as an archetype of a child pedophile.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
he looks like the character Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs.
That is perfect.
He literally looks like that character.
But Sean, I think that what will be confusing to people listening to this is that this latest incident and latest arrest is because he exposed himself in a school. So in a girls' locker room that was at a school, and a lot of people are confused about this, and I think this is really important for parents to understand. Many schools, many schools that are being constructed now, they will put in a pool, and then they say the public can come into this pool when it's not being used by students. Okay, so this happened in the new construction in Alexandria of the new Minnie Howard campus. There is a pool and it's open to the public. So I think a lot of people don't understand. Actually, adults and citizens of a city can go in and use these pools, and they use the locker rooms that students are using. So if you want to explore that a little bit, I just think that's really important to understand how this guy even got access to a school. Most people are scratching their heads saying,
exactly. I can't visit my child at their school without signing books and getting passed in. So hold that thought, Sean. We want to take this over because this happens right in our backyard. It is terrifying. And whether this person identifies as male or female or transgender or they, them or whatever it is, with that kind of criminal past, they shouldn't be anywhere near. I don't care which. They just shouldn't be anywhere near a public facility where there are children, regardless of what they're identifying as at any given moment. But this is the world we live in when Steve Descano on the left decides, oh, well, you're fine. You can do whatever you want. So we'll continue with Sean Kennedy here in a moment. Hold your thought, Sean. We got you. 6:15 WMAL. Traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives with Jamie Witt.
WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
And we continue with Sean Kennedy, Virginians for Safe Communities. And right now, Northern Virginia, Arlington County, Fairfax County doesn't seem very safe with the policies that have allowed this person, we'll call them, lamentably, the last name is Cox, C-O-X, was arrested. And so, again, this person now identifies as female. So they were in a high school locker room, utilizing the pool, exposing themselves while there were young girls in there. I'm looking at the track record here. In 2007, convicted of 6 counts of possessing obscene materials with a minor in Fairfax County. That puts them on the sex offender registry. It's just terrifying to know that this obviously person is exhibiting predatory behaviors. And I mean, has there been any response from law enforcement in Fairfax County, in Arlington, about why this person was allowed to be able to prey again on children?
Well, Arlington Public Schools responded to the leader who's doing a great job on this, Matt Hurt of the Arlington County GOP, and her response was basically the pablum you hear all the time, that we respect the self-identification of people and all that. And it literally, it's one of these things that's funny. The New York Times came out with a poll over the weekend about transgender rights, and it turns out that there are super majorities amongst Democrats and independents and, of course, Republicans saying that basically so many of these policies or ideas are extreme. So 67% of Democrats think that they shouldn't have appeared. That this is not a 67% issue. This is not a 70% issue. This is not an 80% issue. The idea that anyone who has a child sex offense can be in the presence of children is a 99.9% issue. Unfortunately, the 0.1% run the DA's office in Arlington County and Fairfax County, and clearly run the public schools in Arlington County, because they're the ones who allowed this to go on. The Arlington Public Schools, like Julie mentioned, are the ones that allowed self-identification of a pedophile to do this. So did the Planet Fitness in Fairfax, which, to credit, he went to another location of Planet Fitness. The manager noticed him and said, "Get the hell out of here," then went into the system and unilaterally canceled his membership at Planet Fitness. Like, so that guy needs a medal, because the one on the one, and here's the crazy one, the one that is in Fairfax that actually I take my kids to the indoor playground that is in the same building and shares an elevator with this Planet Fitness. A child's indoor playground is in the same building as this place, and this man was allowed to use the showers. That's where Lindsay goes. And I'd seen on Nextdoor and at Reddit and other places people going, "I go there all the time." We all saw him. Everybody knew what was up, and people just avoided the bathroom because they were being made uncomfortable, clearly, by a pedophile running the halls.
Yeah, and Sean, I do think it's really important also that, we keep mentioning Arlington. So this is this is bigger than Arlington.
It's across
Loudoun County, Fairfax County, Arlington, Alexandria. Each of these school districts keep secrets from parents. And in Alexandria, Virginia, a few years ago, there was an alleged sexual assault. They never told parents. They never told the community. And again, it's because they didn't want to get in trouble. They kept it hidden. These school districts are determined to keep these kinds of things hidden. So parents really need to be aware that these schools, they will allow students who identify as the opposite sex of what they biologically are into these bathrooms. It puts girls at such a vulnerability. And I really do think so few parents really realize how radical these school districts are.
No, it's really mind-boggling that we are denying the truth. It's like the old Solzhenitsyn line, which is live not by lies. But we've been told for 10 years now to live by a lie because of somebody's agenda. And the funny part is these are very few people, and the adults who are, members of this community are often not the loud ones. It is people who are cisgender or whatever, who want to force this into as an issue and then convert children or do whatever they want to do and pressure kids. I mean, we keep seeing now, we think that there are 40,000 kids in America who've been given puberty blockers. It's just mind-boggling.
Well, and when you point out a case like this, all you hear is someone screaming back at you saying, not all transgender people are sex offenders and you're casting aspersions on an entire group. And no one's saying that. No one's saying, but guess what? I'm not a sex offender, but if I go into a girl's locker room, it's inappropriate. If I go into a girl's locker room and I take off my clothes and expose myself to young girls, I should be arrested. Okay? So, and that doesn't mean that all heterosexual men that identify as men are sex offenders either. But we have policies set up right now to protect the worst of the worst. And people are afraid to speak out lest they get shouted down by the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the world. And we're done with that now.
That time is over.
We're done with that. And Sean Kennedy, can you just give us...
so radical? Is it so radical that Trump put out an executive order saying men are men and
men are men and women are women? That's where we've gone. And we celebrate it. We actually had to celebrate that. Really fast, Sean.
I want them to amend it. I want to put one other thing on there. Pedophiles are bad. I just want them to...
Oh, now there you go with your judgment. You're so judgy, Sean. Can you give us a quick update on the criminal status of this person? Is this person still in custody, and will there be a swift and thorough prosecution?
Yes, he, who is listed as a female on the charging documents, is being charged today in Arlington County for 3 of the offenses. He has about another 15 or so to go, and those are on March 3rd. But today, likely at 10 a.m. in Arlington County Court, he's up for 3 charges: indecent exposure, approaching a child center, and false identification. And then in 6 weeks, he'll go in front of the court again in Arlington for a slew of other charges. So he is being adjudicated, right. And he's, by the way, being housed with men in Arlington County, listed as a woman on the charging documents.
And held without bail.
Yes.
Thank you. Sean Kennedy,
Thanks,
Virginians
Sean.
for Safe Virginians for Safe Communities. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
It is 6:23.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:36. It's O'Connor and Company coming up at 7:05. Hans von Spakovsky. Talk about a lot of those last-minute pardons that Biden signed on the way out the door, basically absolving his entire family, except Jill, which I think is kind of funny. Maybe she's the one who's going to take the fall. Do a favor for all of us. 7:35. Mark, I'm kidding. Her book is the book I want to read. I want to read Jill Biden's book if she actually tells the truth. 7:35, Mark Morano, Climate Depot, and 8:35, Julie Kelly on the J6 pardons. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Joining us right now is a great American and great law enforcement figure who has, stoically did his job as the chief of police for the Capitol Police right up through the day after the January 6th events, and has been trying to tell his story, tell the truth, and tell the American people exactly what happened that day. And that's why I wanted to talk to you again today, Chief Sund, because of these pardons that President Biden executed on the way out the door. First of all, good morning, and thank you for joining us. I know it must have been, you must have had a lot of mixed emotions over the last couple of weeks here in Washington.
Well, it's always nice watching the big events and the pomp and circumstance and all the security that goes into it. But there's been a lot of conversations with both Capitol police officers and D.C. police officers. All the planning that goes into it. I do miss the planning. I do miss the camaraderie. I don't miss the minutia.
These pardons that President Biden executed on his way out the door for not only the members of the congressional members of the January 6th committee, the select committee, the staff and investigators of the January 6th Select Committee, and even those who testified before the January 6th. I guess that means you got a pardon, Chief Sund, or was it only certain people who got pardons if they only told a certain story?
So it's interesting that you say that because, I suspected this was coming all along. When I got up yesterday morning and it hadn't come out yet, I was like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Because, one, the Select Committee never wanted me to testify in public. Mm-hmm. I did an interview with them, but I don't know if they'd call that a testimony, but they never wanted me to come down and testify in public. And even when I went down and did my interview, they were absolutely adamant. They didn't want to hear anything about the denial of resource in advance and even the denial while we're under attack multiple times and any connection that can have with congressional leadership. So I knew this was coming, especially when they had tampered with evidence. I had my cameras from inside the Capitol. None of those had audio on them. And they imported audio to make it sound more dramatic before the committee. You can't do that. That's tampering with evidence. So I suspected something like this was coming along. To do it in the 11th hour as kind of your last official act, that looks so bad. And I think a lot of people out there see that. I mean, that just looks terrible, especially when you pardon an investigative body. You take all credibility from that body. As soon as you say, hey, we're going to pardon you for everything you've done, it's a congressional investigative body supported by law enforcement. That the truth doesn't need a pardon.
Well, and the truth obviously has had a pretty rough time of it when it goes to rewriting history about January 6th and sort of politically spinning what happened. And it continues to occur. You saw people right up until the last day of the Biden administration, which would be yesterday, saying things like, Officer Brian Sicknick died as a result of the events of January 6th, which the medical examiner specifically said did not happen. I mean, it's horrible that Officer Sicknick died. He was under your command at the time. Sir, and I'm sure that it bothers you that lies are being told about his death to politicize the event and make it. It was bad enough January 6th was to have to lie about that, and yet the one person who was killed the day of the events, January 6th, Ashley Babbitt, the person who pulled that trigger, got a pardon out the door as well. And I'd love, Chief, if you could comment on that as well.
Yeah. So two things. Just, when you think about Brian Sicknick, and absolutely, Brian Sicknick had worked that day. He collapsed that evening. There was a emergency medical technician from Virginia State Police that went to work on him right away. The medical examiner did come out and say it was natural causes, but in a statement, he did say that what went on that day contributed to his condition. So, it's hard to kind of separate the two at times. But when you look at, what goes on, again, everyone's come up with, when you had the shooting, it was a Chambers Lieutenant Michael Byrd, who was involved in the shooting. And, people begin to raise concerns about what happened. And then they come out and they offer this pardon and they include the police officers. That only begins to, further people begin to feel validated in their concerns.
That's
about,
right.
Hey,
That's right. It kills the idea. The whole purpose of transparency is so that everyone knows the truth of what happened so that we can reach our own conclusions.
Well, it was also...
Exactly. Transparency.
Yes. It's interesting, though. Liz Cheney reacted to this pardon of people who testified and the staff and all the members of the committee, saying that, oh, no, it's transparent. She said all the committee evidence is available on multiple websites, and Donald Trump has access to all the transcripts for years. But isn't it true that they destroyed some of the evidence from those proceedings? So it's not true that you can just access everything because, again, those committee members destroyed evidence, which is why these pardons were so important to them. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. When you talk about the new committee under Representative Barry Loudermilk, his staff will tell you that they couldn't find items. Items were missing. Items were encrypted, and they wouldn't give them the encryption key to unencrypt files. I mean, that's absurd. That's as concerning as anything. So when you start seeing the pardons come out and you hear about the deleting of evidence, the refusal to turn over encryption keys of evidence, it just, again, validates people's concern that this was not an effective investigation.
So what would you like to see done here, considering all of these pardons, all of what appears to be sort of a turn the page, let's look forward, no looking back, no investigations, and since everyone's gotten a pardon, what's the point? I think there still is a point, this whole idea of transparency and openness and really delivering the truth, especially considering everyone seems, I'm monitoring MSNBC this morning. Believe it or not, all they want to talk about are the pardons that President Trump signed for those who were arrested for the events of January 6th, the 1,500 people. What do you think needs to happen next?
Again, the American people really just want the truth. They want to know exactly where the failures were, what happened, who made what decisions when that led us to where we were on January 6th. They just want the truth. So I think, hopefully Barry Loudermilk's group will continue to be able to investigate it. We'll see what happens. But, I think ultimately people just want to get down to what exactly occurred, and let's stop this politicization of security.
So you really miss the planning process? Honestly, I would think that would be the worst part of this whole thing.
It's the most demanding, but, having been involved in 6 of these, I mean, I've done Pope's visits, I've done state funerals. It kind of gets into your blood a little bit, something that I really enjoyed. It's a lot of writing. I mean, these things are hundreds of pages long, but it's just something I enjoyed. But it was nice watching it from the warmth of my house this time rather than out in the freezing cold.
Yes. You enjoyed the planning process of a big event. All right, listen, I maintain that you're a great American and a fantastic role model for law enforcement. I think you're also kind of weird, Chief Sund. I'm not gonna lie. Stop. Nobody likes sitting in endless meetings planning inauguration events. That's just. But
I hear what you're saying. I'm a glut for punishment. But, all the support, and I really appreciate the fact that, I never expected to see my name on a congressional report, vindicating everything I've been through. That was surprising. Yeah. But I certainly do appreciate all the support, and I appreciate everything you do, both Julie and Larry. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Chief Sund. We are honored to talk to you every time, and we do and I just wish every single news program across cable news would just sit with one interview with the man who was the chief of police of the Capitol Police on January 6th, and it would illuminate so much about what happened that day. So we're doing our best, Chief. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
You definitely are, and I will tell you, I expected my phone from other media to blow up when that occurred yesterday when that came out, and I appreciate you guys being the one that reached out.
We were the one. Think about that for a minute. Think about where's Jake Tapper? He's just such a champion of the truth. Where's Joe and Mika as they scream about January 6th? you should have Chief Sound on, Joe and Mika. Although I wouldn't wish that. Although, if you enjoy planning an inauguration event, you'd probably enjoy sitting with a Joe and Mika interview because, again, kind of weird.
Let's start with Brett Baer.
All right, Brett Baer.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chief. Take care.
Have a good morning.
6:45. I've met the guy. I can give him a hard time. We're joking. Guys do this.
I know.
Leave me alone.
Sorry.
Finally, the truth behind the headlines. It's the Vince Coglianese Show, weekdays 3 to 6 on WMAL.
So these last-minute pardons went well beyond just the everyone who testified in January 6th. So Cassidy Hutchinson is not protected, and
all the police,
all the cops,
Michael
the
Fanone,
guy with the throat tattoo.
That's Michael Fanone,
yes,
the crisis actor.
He also issued preemptive pardons to members of his family, including his brother. We all knew this was coming. And the silence of from
but some of it was 15 minutes before Trump was sworn in. I mean, it was just a last minute frenzy. I think Byron York wrote a column called the pardon frenzy, which is a perfect way of putting it.
Yeah, and it included his brother and grandchild and everybody who benefited. And again, dating back to 2014. So it's like, or 2015. It's like what he knows what they were doing. He knows exactly where it all began.
When they started tangling with Ukraine.
Yeah. James Biden, Sarah Jones Biden, Valerie Biden Owens, John T. Owens, Francis W. Biden.
Gangsters.
They all got their pardons. He also...
Larry, it's almost like there is something about the Biden family.
Right. And Anthony Fauci, of course.
General Mark
Milley.
Yes.
Now, that all broke during the show, and we had a little bit to say about it already during the program. But coming up in a moment, we're going to have Hans von Spakovsky. We'll talk about that, too. And see exactly.
Yeah, if these are binding, I mean, just this broad.
They're 100% binding. There's no, but it certainly.
Can we just get? Was Alyssa Farrar included?
Oh, I don't know. Can we? Yeah, exactly. Let's arrest somebody, please. Can we convict somebody? He's got to get in the orange jumpsuit. 6:52.
Making sense of your world.
And I just want to say you're doing a fantastic job.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Listen to you guys all the time.
Making sense of the news.
If you're planning to delay retirement and work past 70, like I am, listen to this. Transamerica study found that while the average over 50 worker expects to retire around 67, the average American actually winds up retiring earlier at age 62. Why? Well, unplanned health issues and unplanned job issues. In other words, you're encouraged to get out earlier than you expected. That's nothing funny about that. Why am I chuckling? Well, because Babbage has your back. That's why. You deserve to retire with dignity and confidence, no matter when or why you leave the workforce. So create a customized retirement income plan with Abish Financial. They do that for each one of their clients. Having a plan that clearly defines where your income is going to be coming from each month in retirement is what can help give you the confidence of working working if you want to, not because you have to. Call Abish Financial. Get a complimentary retirement income plan. 571-570-3559, 571-570-3559, or theretirementkey.com. Investment advisory services offered through Abish Financial Wealth Management, LLC, registered investment advisor firm. Insurance services offered through Abish Financial Services, Inc., licensed in Virginia, endorsed, has been compensated. Opinions are his own.